Yes. Yes. Really. Oh, what's it? Motivator show. This is where let's get the show on the way. Huh? But I'm feeling good. Let's turn down the music because this thing, it's let's get go. We go. Let's go. Let's go, shall we? Let's turn it down. Let's turn it down. Let's turn it down. There we go. There we go. Let's turn it down. Wonderful. 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 Let's get my screen sorted out. There you are. And let's take that out. And thank you all. Thank you. If you're listening to us via galaxyfmw.net, the de-brainwashing station. Let's thank the management and Iron King who's taken us from night to day. Praise Jah. Jah, yes. Rastafari. Bless. Ashun. Thank you, Galaxy Management, for being there. 39 years. Long may you continue for another 39 years. And on the baton to the next generations. Praise Jah. Rastafari. I also want to give appreciation to those of you who are viewing the Motivator Show via Facebook and YouTube. Of course, you're viewing us under that banner, The Motivator Show. DE space Motivator space show. There you are. Then you'll be absolutely certain you go directly to this show. You can find the live transmission. You can not only hear but see my personage. Facebook and YouTube. Okay, live, direct, not only to you in Britain, in Europe, Africa, but worldwide. And of course, audio only on Mixcloud. Excellent platform for those of you who, for whatever reason, can't get through to us on galaxyfui.net. Mixcloud, another option for the Motivator Show. Multi-platform, yeah? Multi-technology. We're pushing the boundaries. We'll continue to move forward because Africa will rise, yeah. This is going to be an exciting, thrilling, empowering show. I'm excited. I've completed my exercises this morning and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling alive. I'm feeling determined. Oh yeah, I'm feeling good. Yes, I know it's early, but I'm alive. Huh? I pray for all of those who ensure that I'm alive today, on whose shoulders I am resting upon. So now, let's move forward, shall we? First of all, before I begin, I want to remind people here that the structure of these shows, that I will begin with the lifestyle messages, yeah? Those all-important health-related messages, critical to our community's long-term health and general well-being. Then I'll do some affirmation of past contributors and worthy causes. Then I'll move into the more important bit, which is, of course, my guest, those empowering individuals who are an example of the best of us, ordinary Africans behaving in extraordinary ways. And it could be you. I say again, it could be you. It could be your son, your daughter. It could be an activity or an event that you've organized in which you feel you've achieved I want to know about such activities, such events. I want to know about your children and their achievement because those are the positive, good messages we need to propagate throughout our community. And in doing so, we change the mindset. Let's go for it, shall we? Let's go for it. During the interview, I will open up the phone lines and I'll cordially invite you to engage with my guest, who is an exciting personality, someone I've known for a number of decades now, but someone who's just an ordinary African behaving in an extraordinary way because that's the fact throughout our communities. Ordinary people not believing that they behave in an extraordinary way, but actually they are. They are, of course. We are normal human beings. Let me get it right. Normal human beings. That's all we are. Just human beings. Yeah. We are but one race. Don't fall for any other propaganda. We are one race. Many ethnicities, which means that different parts of the world, we may eat some of us eat rice and peas, and some of us eat jollof rice, some of us eat fish, and some of us eat only meat and bovine, cows, yeah? That's all, that's the only difference, superficial differences, but fundamentally, we are but one human race. There you go. That's why I'm here on the de-brainwashing station where we control the narrative. A narrative founded in facts and not in fiction, which is logic, not in feeling, where we're determined, not speculating. That's why I do these shows. Okay, let's go right into it, because I'm feeling good. Lifestyle messages. And I know as many of you still resist the lifestyle messages, even though they are just common sense messages. I get it, I get it, I get it. But actually, you need to pay attention. Let me just check another setting here. Let's make sure all is well. You need to pay attention. Why pay attention? Because I'm not doing this for my own personal, grandizement. I do this because I'm an elected official and I've seen the figures. In fact, you don't need to be an elected official to see the figures. The figures are actually in the public domain. So whatever I say, you can verify, check, assert for yourself that these facts are indeed facts and not fiction. I pause there because the figures are profound as they relate to our community. And health is our wealth. There's an interesting presenter here on galaxyfreeweek.net by the name of Dr. Stephen Ferguson. That's one of his mantras. Your health is your wealth. Without good wealth, without good health, no matter how much money you have, if you're always ailing from illness, it doesn't matter, huh? Okay. You can be poor and in good health and be vigorous. Yeah. But to be rich and in ill health is, well, that's a pretty glum life, huh? It's even compounded if you're on moderate incomes. Yeah. And you suffer from ill health. You know what that feels like. Yeah. Even here in Britain, where you have a national health service. And it's free at the point of use for the most part. I pause there because I want you to understand and appreciate the gravity of the words. I'll get right into it now. This is important. Please pay attention. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar and salt that you ingest every day, either in the form of those ingredients in their purest forms. You buy sugar from the grocery store, you buy salt from the grocery store, or the foods that you consume that are laced with sugar and salt, the cakes, the crisps. I ask you to consider the amount of sugar and salt that you ingest. I ask you to consider because there's strong causal links between the overconsumption of sugar or sucrose and various other names it goes by, and diabetes, which is at epidemic levels in the African and Asian community. And I say specifically Asian, particularly South Asians, and I specifically relate to countries in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, which have a similar cuisine to ourselves in many ways. Our food is laced with sugar, sugar heavy. And I note a famous speech given by the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Professor Hilary Beckles. And he noted, even in his family circles, but most certainly across the Caribbean, an epidemic levels of diabetes. Yeah, many former sugar plantation islands. Yeah, diabetes, and it's killing us. Most certainly debilitating, and foreshortening many lives. So I ask you to consider the amount of sugar you're ingesting. And like me, I've got a sugary teeth. Don't worry, I have. But over time, I've reduced significantly the amount of sugar that I ingest. So consequently, I no longer buy sugar from the grocery stores, okay? Whenever I encounter a sugary plate or table, I shy away. And I simply say to myself, diabetes. I don't want to get diabetes, okay? Yes, the condition can be managed, but all too often I encounter in my public life people who find difficulty managing their diabetes and the significant impact it has on their life. And where they're not able to control it, what it means for their general health, and sometimes they even lose limbs and so on. So if you can avoid it, so you don't have to depend upon insulin injections every day, I urge you to consider the amount of sugar you consume every day. And equally, I ask you to consider the amount of salt that you ingest every day. Again, salt is one of those pernicious the ingredients we add for so-called flavor enhancement. But actually, it masks the true taste of the food you're consuming, you know? Can you imagine when I was a child, I'd put a little bit of salt on the salad. Can you imagine? In order for the leaves to taste better. Pure fallacy, complete nonsense. Yeah. And even today, I observe adults adding sugar to their food, unnecessarily so. A potential cause of hardening of the arteries, raising of our blood pressures because the heart is pumping blood. It takes longer. It's harder work to pump blood around your body. And therefore, the pressure goes up. And therefore, leave you all, us, vulnerable to other maladies, aneurysms and so on. So the raised blood pressure is dangerous for us. I pause there because I want it to sink in. It's our direct action can prevent what is a public health crisis in our communities. I urge you to pay attention. Sugar and salt. Gradual reduction. I equally ask you to consider the amount of carbohydrates and fat that you're ingesting. Carbohydrates is found particularly in the wheat-based foods that we consume, and of course some root vegetables such as the yam. Carbohydrate and starch in the case of the yam. Yeah, but particularly the wheat-based products, of course, because we eat bread-related, wheat-related products every day. It's the quantum which is the challenge for us. Because what happens, our bodies convert it into energy or store it for a rainy day, or a day in which the body believes it might need that reserve. Yeah? But the overstoring of these things is the challenge for us. So I ask you to consider the amount of carbohydrates that you're consuming, and gradual reduction is what's recommended by the nutritionists, the experts. Okay, but fat is another example of an ingredient that is prevalent in our diet. Most certainly, if from Africa and the Caribbean. Most certainly, but most certainly here in Britain. Okay, particularly in those so-called processed foods. Okay, and you buy meat from the butchers, and you see the white streaks in the meat. That's fat. Yeah. If you're eating dairy products such as cheese or consuming butter or margarine, that is just another form of fat. Yeah. That's what it is. Fat. Cow's fat. Bovine fat, if you like. That's what it is. What do we do with fat? We store it. Yeah. So you see so many members of our community, particularly women, unfortunately, with these bloated shoulders, bloated chest, bloated abdomens, and bloated buttocks. And in some cases, some people say, well, it's in all the right places. But actually, you're placing undue burden on your heart. Actually, you're reducing your immunoresponse to all the maladies, the bacteria, the viruses, and all those other conditions that the immune system is supposed to defend ourselves against. And in some places here in London, in our community, particularly the African communities, and of course, Asian communities, up to 80% of the women are overweight. And 80% of that percentage are morbidly overweight. In other words, they are carrying excess weight and it is wearing them down. Mm-hmm. They're carrying excess weight and it's wearing them down. And it's not because of big bones. It's not because you're naturally big. No. It's directly related to lifestyle. This is why these are lifestyle messages. We can and we must do better, particularly if you're going to bear children. You know, you want to have healthy children, yeah, and you want them to have healthy habits. Yeah, I attended a function earlier this week. Okay, which a nutritionist friend of mine. She's very, very vocal. You know, I need to get her on. My gosh, she would be really quite forceful, I have to say, on this subject. But she drew my attention to an interesting observation. The women at this function consumed more food than the men. If we looked at their plates, they had similar sized plates. Yeah. Now the men now, of course, tall, average around 5'11" or so. Okay. I'm 6'1" and so on. Yep. Okay. And, you know, I'm kind of muscular, he says. Well, you know, huh? But the women were shorter, around 5'6", 5'5", but they were consuming the same quantum of food. In many cases, more than I would tolerate during that sitting. I say again, and they're only half my size. And she drew my attention to it. So I asked her, of course, being a woman, well, why don't you tell your women that what they're doing to themselves? She said they don't listen. Oh my, oh my, oh my. At some point, you know, women got to come together and have a discussion about personal health, how to maintain good health. But women should not be heavier than the men. Okay? Not across the mammalian world, that is not the case. It was a profound observation. A profound observation. And I hadn't fully, despite the fact I do this every week, I hadn't fully observed. I had not fully observed. Sit around the table. The women are eating the same size quantum of food as the men. And there's no way the women could work off all that food. So it has to be stored. And you see those bloated thighs, you know, you can see it. You can see where the food is being stored. And no, no, no. Don't let anyone tell you you look more attractive that way. I'm concerned about your long-term health. Okay? I'm concerned about your long-term health integrity. I'm concerned about the children that you will bear. I'm concerned about the legacy that we will leave. But it's your choice. It's your decision. And lastly, I also ask you to consider the amount of starch that you consume. Okay. Now, starch is one of those interesting ingredients which you find very much in rice. And we eat a lot of rice. If you're from the Caribbean, and Jamaica, rice and peas. West Africa, many parts of Africa, yes, I get it, the jollof rice. And we eat it in quantums, but far too much. I'm told by the expert, and she verified it, and it is a bit depressing, I have to say. I'd be really admitted to you, no more than a fistful of food per sitting. That's what's recommended by the experts. No more than a fistful of food per sitting. I know, I get it. And I've been gradually reducing the amount of food I consume every day, because I'm surrounded by food. Reassure you, I'm surrounded by food, okay? And I've got my habit of large plates of food. When I was younger, oh my God, I know many of you can hear this, enormous amount of food. I'm somewhat mature now. I definitely do not need a similar sized plate. Now I tend to have salads and put things into salad these days. Lots of green vegetables. So let me get on to that. What the experts recommend is that we should eat far more fruits and vegetables. Okay, fruits most certainly, and vegetables, particularly the green vegetables, but a broad range of vegetables. Okay, raw if possible. Okay, but most certainly a broad range of vegetables. Okay, and you could eat meat no more than 5, possibly 10% of the total nutritional intake. I say again, the experts recommend, and please verify, check what I'm about to say, far more fruits and vegetables, okay? Particularly green vegetables, but a broad range of vegetables. They also recommend that you should consume between 2 to 3 liters of water per day. Mind you, the food you consume, particularly with natural food, is contained water already. But between 2 to 3 liters of water per day, depending on your height and your mass, it will vary. If in doubt, please speak to your GP, speak to your doctor, or indeed speak to your nutritionist. Okay, go to the local chemist or pharmacist. They normally have a nutritional pharmacist attached to them some way or another. They are excellent people to provide professional advice. Okay, or indeed your personal trainers who've been trained how to give advice to their customers. Also, of course, in addition to ensuring that you eat fruits and vegetables in the right quantum, no more than a fistful or so per day, consuming at least 2 to 3 liters of water, particularly in mind of your size and mass, okay? It's equally important to exercise. Exercise is mission critical. I'm going to say it again. Exercise is mission critical. Okay. If you're consuming the right food, you don't exercise, then you're defeating the whole purpose of eating the right food. Because our bodies are made to be worked, to be stretched and pulled. Okay. Physiologically, that's how we are created. Yeah. To hunt for our food. Okay. To go through lean period where food is not so plentiful, okay? Our bodies are adapted to it. Our bodies and our physiology, our minds are adapted to that lifestyle, okay? It will take thousands of years to reprogram our bodies and minds. So exercise is a critical part of your overall health regime, okay? I went for my run this morning, did my stretching, okay? I've got my weights here. I love my weight. Here we are. I've got my weights here, just to show you all. Oh yes, notice I'm laughing already. I love my weight. Do 200 of these on both arms. I can assure you, It's really worthwhile, huh? Honestly, if you can do this, get your own weights, do 200 of these per day, I can assure you, you will feel better. You will feel better for it. Yep, you'll feel more alive. You feel more alive, more able. Yeah, more able. Yeah, you're able to concentrate far more. Because in addition to ensuring that you eat the right food in the right quantum, okay, drink the amount of water you need for your bodies, okay, and exercise, what will wrap all this up is for you to take care of your mental and spiritual health. Again, critical, okay? If in doubt with your mental health, I ask you, please, I urge you to seek out professional advice or speak to whoever you trust and share your feelings so they can help you to obtain that professional advice. So critical, absolutely critical. Far too many members of the communities suffer in silence, unnecessarily so. Unnecessarily so. But our spiritual health is an important part of who we are as a people. So I urge you in this regard, either to meditate or seek out a spiritual advisor. I personally meditate and I find the experience truly thrilling. In my case, from 30 minutes to an hour per day across maybe 2 sessions has proven to be remarkably helpful to me. Okay? And I'm able to focus for long periods of time because I'm very clear why I'm doing this. There you go. There you go. I hope these lifestyle messages receive you well. Okay. I hope none of you have been offended. Okay. But I do hope that the messages resonate with your personal experiences. Okay. So you now feel empowered to act for your sake, for your loved one's sake, for your community's sake. Huh? I hope that makes sense. I hope it makes sense to you. Okay, there you are. End of the lifestyle messages. Because this is the Motivator Show. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. Okay. Now then, there's just a few messages I want to further give out. Now, if you want to communicate to the studio, okay, you can communicate to the studio via our chat facilities. If you're viewing us on Facebook or YouTube, you can communicate directly with the studio using our chat facility. I welcome your messages. So I'll say to Lizzie, thank you very much, Lizzie. Thank you. And Joe, thank you very much. Yeah, I thank you for your messages. Yeah, I want to make sure that these messages continue to inspire, but I welcome your feedback. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, you can directly communicate to the studio using chat facilities. I welcome your input. Okay, and all those I've met since the last show, thank you for those words of encouragement. Thank you, because you know it does take a bit of effort to prepare for each show. I'm a kind of busy person in many ways, but I enjoy these shows because they provide an opportunity to engage with people in a different format than I would normally. So absolutely, I will continue as long as I can to do these podcasts or these shows, depending upon your age group, I suppose. But there are a few other messages I want to get out before I bring in our guest. And our guest will be arriving in the next 10 minutes or so. And I just want to just give these words for you. So I will just remind you of my favorite author, Ndidi Ishewe. Okay. Ndidi, of course, is a prolific writer. Okay, let me just bring up some of the details on the screen if I can. She's a prolific writer, a great thinker. And as a result, I've got no hesitation in recommending Ndidi's work to you all. Okay. Last week we highlighted the Ndidi's article about the alternative youth culture. Okay. And I'll say you more about that later on the show. Okay, because that was really quite interesting. Okay. But this week, her articles on the importance of citizens' participation in fixing Nigeria. Now, the article does focus on Nigeria, and we all should be interested in Nigeria, the largest democracy in the motherland of Africa, okay? An economy that will rival Britain in within 20 to 30 or possibly 40 years' time. But we have to make sure it happens. An enormous population, incredible potential, but at the moment it's underperforming. I say that with a heavy heart. Underperforming. But you don't rely upon solely the politicians. Yes, I'm a politician. You don't rely solely on the business community. You don't rely solely on the academia. Mm-hmm. It is the citizens that must participate in Nigeria's revival. And that's true for all countries of the world, but certainly in Africa. And most certainly for our community here in Britain and Europe. We must participate in solutions finding, implementing those solutions. That is what this article focuses on. And I might, if I can later on, after my guest, okay, read some excerpts from what is a first-class article by Ndidi Ichiwe. Okay, Ndidi, I'll spell it for those of you on audio solely. Ndidi, Ndidi, Ichiwe, Uwechue. Okay, I repeat this surname, Uwechue. Okay, so that article, which is the theme for today's show, the importance of citizen participation in fixing Nigeria, but this applies to the whole of Africa and applies to our communities wherever we are in the world, not just Nigeria. Okay. Well, the article focuses on Nigeria. It's the principles, which is what will be highlighted in this show by virtue of my guest, who is an inspired African person. Okay. I also want to remind people of a call out that we made last week as regards CASP, the Camberwell After School Project. Okay, it's seeking to raise £5,000 from the community. You can find them on the crowdfunder site. Okay, Camberwell After School Project. Okay, they're an organisation that's been around for more than 37 years. Okay, and is struggling to remain sustainable. Okay, and we heard very briefly from the chief executive, Carmen. Okay, she's a truly inspired African woman. Okay, the After School Project, as it sounds, it supports families for their children after school during the holidays. It's open for longer hours for obvious reasons. But I want to commend the Camberwell After School Project to you. I mean, if you're in London, most certainly you should try and pay them a visit. You can find them. You can find their website. It's www.casforsugarpuk.org. casforsugarpuk.org. Okay, or you can phone them if you wish to give them support on, if you're in the UK, 0207 708 2711. I repeat, 0207 708 2711. They are an outstanding organisation. I also want to give light to another organisation that plays an important part of in our community. I want to give light to the National Association of Black Supplementary School, or NABS, as sometimes referred to by some people. National Association of Black Supplementary Schools, or SATSI schools, okay? They are an organisation who are a collection nationally of all of our educational resources. In other words, those education facilities that we manage, we finance ourselves in support of our children. And particularly now, particularly during the holiday times, it's more so important that the supplementary schools, Saturday schools, those facilities created by us, okay, either in the secular side or through our faith communities, are a critical part of who we are as a community. I wish to commend the National Association of Black Supplementary Schools to you and commend Brother Nia, the coordinator, and the person who's ensured that the resources are always available for Saturday schools, supplementary schools, those education facilities that seek to support children is available, and they are given some national profile. Their website, it's www.nab SS, supplementary school in other words, nabss.org.uk. I repeat, www. That's three W's, nabss.org.uk. And of course, you can phone if you want to get information on the local facilities to yourselves. Phone Brother Nia on 07958 348 558. I repeat, 07958 348 558. And of course, the recording of this show is always available on Facebook or YouTube if you missed any of these details. And very quickly, the last organization I want to give light to, if I can find the details very quickly, it'd be very nice if I could. And I might just talk about this organization. In fact, I might just talk about this organization for now. I want to talk about organizations that are providing support to the elderly. Okay, there are many organizations that come out of our experience here in Britain in particular. I ask you, if you can, seek out your local organizations, okay? They are important to us, okay? They represent who we really are as a community, okay? They represent who we really are as a community. Okay? So I'll just give a quick shout out, and I think I've got another minute. I'll give another shout out to a show I did only a few months ago about prostate cancer. Okay, I know it sounds awful. I know some people, they've really seized up on that. It's such an important area, men's health. Okay, I said I've very rarely do shows on men's health for reasons I cannot explain, but I'm trying to make up for it this year. But we had a show in which Professor Frank was present, and the theme of that show is to listen to the professor. And I say to men, if you've not been to the doctor for 20, 30, 40 years in some cases, I'm aware of men who not go to the doctor for that period of time, that's foolish. Extremely foolish. It is recommended, particularly men of African heritage, that if you're 45 and over, that you should go for regular annual checkups. Okay, and in the case of us men of African heritage, particularly, okay, it's important to ask the doctor for a PSA test, and that will allow the doctor to test for antigens for either an inflamed prostate gland or other conditions that relate to the prostate. Okay, it's such an important action I urge men to undertake. Why? Because prostate cancer, is the biggest killers. It's akin to breast cancer in women. Okay, so I say this with a heavy heart. Too many men are suffering from the condition silently, and they're too embarrassed to go to the doctor, and that's really foolish. I urge you, speak to your partner, speak to your loved ones, whoever you respect, for advice. And if you're uncertain about going to the doctor, seeking the support you need, have that person go with you so that you can gain the confidence to seek out and obtain the professional advice and therefore potentially treatment that you might need. I urge you, if you've not seen your doctor for over a year, men of African heritage, and you're over 45 and over, I urge you, go visit your doctor and say, hi, yes, I'm alive, but can you just check, can I be checked out anyway? Ensure I'll be alive next year. I laugh and I jest, but actually it's very serious. I've encountered far too many members of our community who are neglectful of their own health. Why the lifestyle messages were so important. Alrighty, I'm going to pause there. Those are the public health messages, the lifestyle messages I've given out. You know, we mustn't be afraid to say this publicly. I know I spend the first few minutes of the show on this, but it's so critical because I've seen the stats and they make for uncomfortable reading. And I will be negligent, irresponsible, but then didn't spend a few minutes communicating with you and sharing with you the knowledge that I've acquired during my lifetime. Alrighty. Ubuntu, huh? We are because we understand? Because we all belong to each other. We're all responsible for each other. Wonderful. Ubuntu. Okay, let's go to the next phase of the show. I've got what I believe to be one of the most exciting guests I've had for some time. This particular person, I don't want to embarrass him, too much, but it's someone who I've known long before I've actually met him. Okay, okay, and I've actually been following some of his work because it's we don't always politically agree, okay, but from a moral African-centric point of view, we are in lockstep. Okay, and if you want to understand some of my reference point, I mentioned Ndidi Ichiwe earlier on and her articles. I urge you to go seek her out. This gentleman is another example of the truly inspired Africans that I've had the pleasure to encounter. I'm now going to bring him into the studio and let's get this interview underway. It's truly going to be a thrilling experience. Let's get him into this, make sure it works. Let's hope my technology works. I see the great man, the great person himself. Glenroy Watson, how are you, sir? How are you?
Not too bad. Greetings, Mr. Motivator. I hope I can live up to the build-up. Can I take the opportunity before I forget to say that the issue of prostate cancer and the embarrassment that you mentioned, there's also blood tests that can identify an issue, which obviously is not as what should we call it, interrogating as other means of detecting prostate cancer. So the embarrassment factor isn't always there. People should get tested. It's a killer and it needs to be monitored.
Absolutely. Thank you. There you are, people. if you understand where I'm coming from, you've heard of me before I even start the introduction, huh? You notice? He cares. Levels of empathy is, so commendable. Glenroy, how are you this fine London? Well, I say fine. It's actually a grey day outside, but anyway, how are you?
Well, we need the rain, it helps the potatoes grow and stop those entrepreneurs raising the price of chips every year. So, those of you who live in this part of the planet should welcome the rain. Maybe not too much of it, but...
Yeah. Glenroy, you're right. And there you are, people. You heard, he's an entrepreneur and all this, but listen, we are in lockstep. We don't always agree on the politics, but I understand and I respect you. Okay? And I respect you. But I want to go straight into the interview because this really gives an opportunity for the audience to get to know you and appreciate you as I appreciate you. My opening question for you, Glenroy, and may I call you, for the duration of this show, as you would call me often, Comrade Glenroy?
Certainly.
There you go. All right. Comrade Glenroy. Now, the audience wants to get to know you, to understand who you are. So my first question, please share either an event or person that's had a real impact on your life and made you and shaped you who you are today? Event or person? Just give us a flavor.
Well, a number of people, because clearly you can see by the grey beard that I have been around for some time. So there are a number of people, but I like to really remember that at a very young age, I was born on the island of Jamaica. I don't consider myself a Jamaican, but that's another discussion, and happy so-called independence when it does come. But I recall at school being asked or being offered, what was it, milk powder and processed cheese. And I quite liked the cheese, actually. But I couldn't understand why we were being given this, because it was a queen's birthday, So I kind of objected to it in probably rather a young age. And I was suspended as a result, which
Wow.
as I said, I quite like the process cheese and what you could do with each other, you could swap. So I wish I'd waited, got the cheese, got the milk, and I could change the milk powder and get some more cheese. But
Uh-huh.
I was suspended for 2 days, 3 days, including the day that I was the event happened. And when I returned, and I was complaining about the independence process, why are we still doing this? And my teacher said to me, and I remember her, Miss Esme, she
Hmm.
said, "You were absolutely right, but you did it in the wrong way."
Whoa.
And for me, she was a someone who you could rely on. And I'm talking about a very young age, so I had no political experience. I certainly didn't know the way to do it. I think in my work life on London Underground, another very important person I met was a comrade named Wilbert Ains. He was from Barbados, where my parents are retired.
Mhm.
And I was concerned when I first joined London Underground of the still racism that I saw there, that was still
Yes.
there. So I challenged my elders. I said, how is it that this is still here? I mean, I avoided joining London Underground for the stereotyping issue. So he and I had shall we say, a reasoning, because I was just astounded that this was still going on. And he helped me, and we made um, effort to form organization. He was a very good friend of mine. Indeed, when we were doing anti-apartheid work, he was one of the stalwart within the underground activity around fighting apartheid.
Mhm.
But on the international level, I always like to mention Samira Machel
Oh,
of Mozambique.
yes.
Bob Crow has made his statement famous about if you don't fight, you've lost. But if you fight, you may win or you may lose. But the
Mm.
first time I heard that phrase was from Shamira Michelle.
Yes.
And as I said, Bob Crow's made it famous, and it's one of our motifs within the trade union movement. You have to fight. If you don't, you've already lost.
It's an interesting. I thought about this particular point. I've got an interesting quote from Samora Michel that I retained, and this is what he said: "Of all the things we have done, the most important, and that history will record as the principal contribution of our generation, is that we understand how to turn the armed struggle into a revolution, that we realize that it was essential to create a new mentality to build a new society." Yeah. Adaptability. Got to adapt. Yeah. Okay.
Incredible comrade, murdered by the apartheid regime, though
Mhm.
we've never been able to prove it.
Mhm. And are there other international figures that
Too many to mention, Mr. Motivator. We'll be here all day because I admire the contribution our people have been making to global society. Sometimes we have to remind people that we were not slaved, but people came and enslaved us.
Absolutely.
Too many times, even our own people are referring to
Hey,
us and our
Comrade
ancestors
Lenroy,
as slaves.
Comrade, I just want to say that particular sentence again. We were not slave. We were in. Say that again with real emphasis, because it's important for those words to resonate with the audience. Please say again.
No European or Arab came to Africa and took slaves away. They took us away and enslaved us, murdered us, exploited us, abused us. We were not slaves. We were doctors. We were builders.
There you
We
go.
were farmers.
Yeah.
We had society. We had laws. We had lives.
Yes.
So we need ourselves, especially if you see an African referring to slavery and the so-called enslaved trade, calling it the slave trade, as if we were trading. We were standing at the beach with price tag on our shoulders. We need us, first and foremost, to recognize our people were not slaves. They were taken away and enslaved.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that additional emphasis. It's such an important psychological phenomenon that I hear it so often, that they took slaves from Africa. No, they took people from Africa, okay, and enslaved them in the Caribbean and the Americas and here in Europe. Yeah, you say doctors, architects, builders, cooks, farmers. That's who they took. Ordinary human beings, yeah, and enslaved. Yeah.
And in case, motivator, in case there are people still out there with that idea, even European, the recent revelation that metallurgical workers in Jamaica had actually revolutionized the metal industry.
That's right.
And they stole it, like they stole so many things.
Yes.
And then pretended it's their own. But as somebody said, everything you hide in darkness will be revealed in light.
There you go.
And so it is. We should find out their names. We should demand, as part of our reparation demand, that their ancestors is recognized for what they are.
And we're going to get on to reparations shortly. But you mentioned your involvement with the unions. Okay. And as you know, the unions founded the Labour Party, a party that I'm a member, to which I represent as a local councillor. In your opinions, are unions protecting the rights of their members of African heritage?
It's an emphatic no. But we live in a society that does not protect us. So what do we do? Within the trade union movement, we have to form organization and empower ourselves within those bodies. The reality is you must see the trade union movement like a car, for example. If you don't put petrol in it, if you don't have a key to start it, if you don't have the means by which to make it work, then it's just a lump of metal.
Yes.
And the trade union can be seen in the same way unless you actually organize to make it what it's supposed to be. The theory is there. The idea is one that I very much support, but I don't pretend that it's standing by ready to defend me, ready to defend others. If people are not willing to make that vehicle work, to put the key in, to start the engine, it will not work. So within trade union, and certainly within my trade union, we've been setting up various groups, even groups for youth, because they inherit the future. So we want youth members to be active. We want African members and other so-called ethnic groups to be active. The trade union movement will not step up and do anything for you unless you kick it in the arse to get where you want to go. And I know it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say things like that, but here we are. But, it's an institution.
Yes.
But it's an institution, as you say, that created the Labour Party, had social concept, and had morality around the dishonesty between rich and poor. We haven't won that one yet, but the idea is on the table. So what we have, in essence, is a vehicle.
Yes.
And I say always to people, you have to take the right of being in those organizations and make it do what it's supposed to do. I've
Absolutely.
dealt with too many bureaucrats within the movement to know that they're quite happy to turn up every day, shuffle around a few papers, and are not willing to get down and actually organize for the revolution that we're supposed to have. You know, we still have it in our rule book within the RMT that we are about suppressing the capitalist state.
Okay.
Still there. We still have clause 4. I'm not going to
Well,
mention where your clause 4 is, Conrad, but
But what I do want to do is in relation to the unions, and you made some really important points, okay, that they're not yet effectively representing our interests. But in order for them to do so, we must become active in unions. Yeah. Okay. In other words, as I said at the beginning of the show, with regards to Ndidi Ichiwa's article on the citizenry taking responsibility. Okay, and that's really, I'll just put it back on the screen again. I can put it on the screen. The citizenry taking responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's very right in that regard.
yeah, and it is interesting to see how this will evolve over time. Are there particular unions, notwithstanding your own union, of course, who you believe get it and really galvanize this issue of racism, indeed sexism, general misogyny that might exist in British society? Are there any particular unions you would you care to mention, or would you want to avoid that question?
There are many, but as I said, it's not about the bureaucracy. It's not even about sometimes the general secretary. You have and can have motivated general secretary who
Yeah,
impact.
yeah,
But the reality is that it's about having people on the ground
yep,
and respecting them, in fact, because what usually happens is we find that sometimes it's resented, the
mm,
rank and file contribution. And did it, we say it all the time that we're a member led union.
mhm.
Many members don't understand that, and the bureaucracy are willing to contradict any interpretation you might give.
It's
But
true.
you know, we were very fortunate when we were in the NUR, which later became the RMT, in the help we got from local government unions like NALGO, who have merged with others into Unison.
Yeah,
I found them very helpful. But again, the local membership. FBU, Fire Brigades Union, we had some engagement with them, and you know, people should really research the issue and
mm,
the history of how African people failed within the fire service for many, many years.
yes,
And it's in danger of being pushed back as well. People should keep an eye on it.
yeah.
And, you know, we've had meetings with the US fire service people who explain in some parts of the US, you would have segregated fire station.
Oh wow, oh
You
wow,
would only have one fire station. And of course, when these things happen, it then also impact on resource. In other words, you won't have in the African community the amount of resource to fight fire. And yet, because of the state of buildings and so on, it was more prone to damage and fire.
yes,
They needed it more. I recently visited Canada. That's still going on.
oh wow,
It's still going on.
it,
Maybe not deliberately, but
yes,
there are fire station in wealthy community and fire station in less wealthy community. Let's say that because it's not only African people that are there, but many other communities as well, including poor whites.
right.
But the reality is it's a segregated fire service. I didn't look at much more, but you know, if we want to really face up to the challenge within the trade union movement of raising and dealing with these issues. I never pretend we're going to kill racism, it's going to be at an end,
Mhm.
but we can make sure it knows that every time it raises its head, we will chop it off. The
Absolutely.
reality is that we must promote and encourage African members and other groups when they join the trade union to be active part of the trade union. And I think we've successfully done that to some degree in the RMT. Always pushback, there's always danger. When we come on to reparation, I would like to say something about how the union has stepped up. So
Mm.
there are examples, but I always remain cautious and say to people, it's up to you. It's what Ndidi says, citizens, members of an organization must realize that they have an impending responsibility, a continuous responsibility to make the thing work. We join because of the philosophy.
Yes.
And then we get there and realize it doesn't deliver.
If I may, sorry, Glenroy, to be clear, so you are recommending that members of our community join the unions, even though they're not at this stage generally representing our interest, but you see it as being an important part of change in British society, that we join a union and there are more advantages than disadvantages.
But not in a passive way.
Do
not join.
Yes.
Sit down and wait for assistance to come to you. Be part of that change.
Right.
Be part of agonizing.
Absolutely.
Organizing and agitating.
Absolutely.
The trade union to deliver. Yeah. And I would like to quote Marcus Garvey, who says, if you can't find an organization that suits you, create one of your own.
Yep. Absolutely.
Now, I'm not advocating black trade union in the UK. We are populated enough around the world to create our own trade union. But if we're here and we seriously believe they're not delivering, then we must find an alternative.
Absolutely.
And the principle of trade union can be delivered by other organizations. But I do believe, join the organization, make them know you're there, link up with others to make sure your interest is being addressed. Absolutely. We currently have a situation on the underground, it's been going on for years, where I believe that our cleaning members are very much underappreciated, under-respected by both management and our trade union officials, some of them. We've got to change that. But it won't happen unless the cleaners themselves are mobilized to do that.
Yes.
You cannot liberate other people.
Right. Well said. Thank you so much. So we're recommending join a union, but you should not be passive members of that union. Okay. And that's, I think, is the important message. And indeed, and if I may, Glenroy, just Glenroy, just add this to us. Because of course, not being passive is one thing, and you and I are not a problem in being proactive, but there are many members of the community who are don't have our drive. What do you say to such people who don't have our drive but desire change?
Yep. If you can't walk, run. If you can't run, crawl.
Yes.
If you can't crawl, get someone to carry you. Yes. In other words, I see that statement by Martin Luther King to say, work in solidarity with other people.
That's right.
If you cannot do the things on your own, get somebody to carry you. So it's not about just going there and knocking on the door and say, I'm here. It's about, I am here with him, her, him, and so on and so forth. So it's about, again, organization, solidarity with others. You know, sometimes our people feel that they're alone, but they're not.
No. We
have to seek out each other. I mean, it's a weird experience, the London Underground. I avoided it for years because of the stereotype, as I said earlier on. But the reality is that was one of the areas where we were more prolific in our trade union activity, but most people didn't know it.
Right.
So people outside the industry didn't know the fights that were going on within the railway industry. You know, many, many years later, we found out about people who were being blacklisted, also being refused promotion or kept from certain grades. Right. Later on, I read in our own journals that people sent motion to our annual general meeting, suggested that African people should not be allowed to rise beyond the grade of foreman.
Wow.
Yeah, this was trade unionists doing that.
Wow.
And our biggest brag about this thing is, we defeated at the AGM. Well, it shouldn't have made it that far. you know, because in order to do that, you have to go through certain stage. First stage being you have to go to your page and say something like that. So
Yeah.
either the person proposing it looked around, see no Africa, no other community, and put a motion that says we've got to keep them down.
Wow.
You know, and on the back of that, people might have heard about the Paddington Guard situation,
Yes. Uh-huh.
where quite a number of Asian people had a test designed to disadvantage them.
Wow.
Certain words in the English language that don't necessarily form part of a sentence,
Right.
and therefore was designed to be misinterpreted so that people can say, well, you needed 60%, you only got 59%, those kind of things.
Yes.
And we had to take them to court.
Yes.
But the trade union movement was sitting there observing this.
Yes.
And in those days, I think we had about 11 trade unions or more.
Yes.
And none of them stood up. People had to go outside to get assistance.
Yes.
But they were organized
Yes. Yes.
to take them as a body to places like the CRE
Yes.
and raise issues like that.
I think it's important to say that currently the overwhelming majority of unions are good for workers. Okay, and I think it's right for us to recommend members of our community, where there is a union, to join the union but become an active member. Okay, wherever you can, and join with others, because the collective interest usually is your interest. I mean, that's the important word. Yeah, I think that's important.
For example, before I forget, Motivator, the National Educational Union, NEU,
Yes.
has its first African General Secretary.
Yes.
And this year,
Yes.
we are hosting the RMT's reparation conference at their headquarters in Houston.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, that's very good. I'd like to think I'm invited, and I'll get onto that later on. But I'd like to think I'm invited. I definitely would like to go along to that particular event. But you mentioned in your earlier response to my question on unions that you were involved in the anti-apartheid movement. So tell me, what did the British anti-apartheid movement play to overturn the fascist South African regime at the time? What did it play? Was it pivotal or not?
Yeah, I think we need to say that we assisted people on the ground to deliver that ending of apartheid. And remember, it didn't come as sort of just an event in South Africa. It was all in Southern Africa. People might remember the term the frontline state.
That's right.
These were countries that were bordering on South Africa. And remember, you know, when we were in the struggle, there was a place called Rhodesia. In fact, before that, there were East, or was it West or Southern Rhodesia, and so on. So the struggle was not just about South Africa and apartheid, because once liberation had been obtained by Zimbabwe, changing the name from Rhodesia, it became a target for South Africa.
It did, yes.
But Angola,
yes.
Mozambique,
yes.
Namibia,
yes.
and all of those countries were being attacked on a regular basis by South African fascist mercenaries. Well, you know, and so really at the end of the day, supporting the struggle in South Africa wasn't the only thing on our agenda. And again, these are the things we had to fight white institution within the anti-apartheid movement. I once heard this phrase that in order to liberate the frontline state, we have to defeat South Africa. But what does the frontline states do in the meantime? What do the people in the frontline state do? Sit on their hands and wait for an end to South Africa? South Africa was sending troops to Angola.
It was, yes.
Invading a national state.
Yes. Namibia.
You know, so the liberation struggle was a liberation of Africa.
Yes.
Not of South Africa alone. And some within our movement, the anti-apartheid movement, bought into that. Let's not worry about the frontline state. Let's not worry about thousands of people. So I and others within the executive committee, which I spent some time in, had to fight this kind of thinking. And then when you couple that to the reality is that you can't be in a liberation struggle, a liberation organization that simply look outwards. We wanted an anti-apartheid movement that recognized the apartheid and racism in this country.
Yes.
And addressed it. Oh, no, we can't do that. We're set up to help the struggle of South Africa. In fact, I recall being told that if you want an anti-racist organization, you should create one yourself. Wow. Not use the anti-apartheid movement for that purpose. But it was anti-apartheid. It was anti-racist. Wow. So we had lots of argument in that regard. And again, within our trade union and within other trade unions, we created the organization that would fight those issues without the constraint that says, and remember, the anti-apartheid movement was riddled, well, don't say riddled, that's the wrong word, certainly had a lot of people within it, yes, from political organization, yes, who may genuinely have concern about the racism there, but only wanted to focus on that international aspect. So in many, many ways, both as a member of the executive and a member of my trade union, we set up structures to do what they wouldn't do. We built alliance with Namibia, built alliance with Mozambique, yes, and more emphatically, because the war was raging in Angola, yes, we built alliance with them. Yes. So it was very much important that we do that. You know, as a worker on London Underground, you know, I used to raise money for the struggle. And what I used to say emphatically to Africans when they were making donation, this will alleviate the organization need to spend their money on medicine as well as weapons. In other words, we were supplementing, yes, the provision of the armed struggle. Yes. I didn't say that to Europeans, not all of them, those that I knew perhaps, but I certainly didn't want a sterile discussion that we were just patching up people. We were arming people and making sure we won the liberation struggle.
And this is maybe why my early encounters of yourself. I won't go into that right now, but I most certainly was able. Your charisma was quite remarkable, and I'm not an easy person to persuade. But within 5 minutes of being in your company on this subject, I most certainly, if I had any complacency, it was totally eliminated. I did want to say thank you for all that work, you and others who dedicated your life to the liberation of South Africa, or indeed of Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. Yeah, I want to thank you. This is my very first opportunity in the public forum to say that to you. Thank you.
Can I also just say that we managed, and perhaps in an editorial license, we managed to get the London Underground magazine to print a photograph of us handing over a check to a comrade from Namibia. Okay. Some people were incensed because they knew what it was about. Maybe the editors didn't. We did explain that this was for the struggle in Southern Africa, and they printed it.
Well
done. So well done. Great. Yeah? We managed to get in the establishment.
Yeah. Well done. As I said, legacy. Can I now move on to my next area of questioning, which really does focus on an area that you and I have been working on for many years? That's, of course, the United Nations and the Bridgetown Conference Against Racism. Now, I think it was either 2002 through 2003, but you'll come back to me in a moment. But I understand it was a seminal event for our present-day reparations movement. Explain why that is the case for the audience benefit. Why was the Conference Against Racism a seminal moment, which then led on to the reparations movement as you and I know it today?
Well, firstly, to say that, you know, the reparation movement started with the enslavement of our people.
Indeed.
And I always remind people, the very first African either to be put on a ship or a camel was saying, how do I get what you're stolen back, i.e., my labor, my wealth?
Mm-hmm.
So the reparation campaign didn't start in South Africa. It didn't start with the Rastafarian community in Jamaica. They kept the fire alive.
Yes, yes.
But the UN conference in 2001
Mm-hmm.
was a really remarkable thing, because what had happened was that there was a anti-racist conference in 1980 and another in 1990. Most people didn't know anything about it. But a young woman named Gay McDougall came round to our organization, a trade union and community group, and told us there was another conference planned in 2000. And we mobilized, especially within the trade union movement. The conference was pushed back because suddenly the demand to be there and the demand about pre-conference, UN conference work in a way that they have regional structures where the agenda is built up. And so we sent many of our trade union representatives to Geneva at the time to affect the European regional event. As a result, our demand that enslavement and colonialism must be on the agenda, not simply racism and xenophobia as they wanted to do, meant that they had to push back the conference. They realized the venue wasn't big enough, that other arrangement had to be made, facilities for dignitaries, because the world would be in attendance and all the best hotels would be taken up by them, and so on. So instead of a 2000 World Conference Against Racism, it became the 2001. And the world was looking on, the world was in attendance. The Americans, when it became clear that the youth and the NGO section of the conference would not let go of the demand for reparation for enslavement and colonialism, walked out. The Americans walked out. And the Israeli joined in with some fictitious excuse about the fact that the South African trade unions were against their activity in Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
So that really should have meant some of the hotels being freed up. I'm sorry, it wasn't. Those of us who had to stay outside of Durban and drive in every day
Yes.
were still doing that. The British sent a large delegation of government people. At the time, the Labour Party was in power, and I think Baroness Amos, I think, was one of those, but certainly Angela Eagle, I think, or one of the Eagle sisters, were also sent there as ministers to meet with us. And every night we met to discuss how the conference was going. And we asked them, because the Stephen Lawrence report had just come out, we asked them that they should use this as a platform of how Britain was attempting to address racism.
Mm-hmm.
And that the fact that they admitted that the police and other bodies were institutionalized racist is a good thing to be accepted. And to my surprise, an elderly, well, I say elderly, he's older than me at the time, African civil servants came out and he says the global community would not understand the term institutionalized racism.
Wow.
To which I respond, I said, well, so you're saying really Britain exported racism around the world. Now that it's come back, you think they won't understand it? You've influenced the whole world with the action of the British imperialism. And now you're telling us the rest of the community, the rest of the world won't understand. But it was still an extremely successful conference. We could see the Americans trying to manhandle smaller nations and telling them not to agree with the protocol, not to sign up to it.
Mm-hmm.
But they did.
Yes, yes.
The rest of the world signed up to the Durban Declaration that declared enslavement a crime against humanity and colonialism. And so we have an obligation to fight
Mm-hmm.
for justice
Yes.
until it's been achieved. Out of that conference, however, we formed a African caucus. And that caucus decided that we must get together before the end of the year to ensure that we do not let this go. We do not let this fall into some unknown dark passage. But the conference ended, think about the 3rd or 4th of October.
Right.
No, beg your pardon. It ended, I think, about the 3rd of September.
Okay.
The reason it's important to remember that is what happened later on in the US. My wife and I decided to see some more of Africa before we came back to Europe. And I was in Cote d'Ivoire at the time that the so-called September the 11th happened. And you'll remember the Americans were saying, we've got to forget everything, join up with us to fight terror.
Yes, yes.
Now, I'm not going to join the conspiracy theorists and whatever, but it seems extraordinary that we were suddenly being asked to forgo the gains made in Durban. And certainly many organizations did that. Many governments did that. They did nothing about the outcome of Durban and still haven't. But in September, they had the, how do I say this? Not an opportunity, that's the wrong word, but they certainly created the opportunity to not do anything. We, on the other hand, had made a commitment that we will organize within a year. And we did. We held the African and African descendants, not a word I particularly resonate with because I'm not a descendant of anything, I'm an African. But we held a conference in Barbados. It was very
Bridgetown in Bridgetown in Barbados, yeah?
Bridgetown, Barbados, yes. I'm sorry. Yeah, very tremendous because, it's hard to explain if you weren't there. If you think about Africans from all over the world, there, Russia, Sweden, those kind of places that people don't normally associate our people with, they're there. We're living there.
Yes.
And they were in attendance. But it ran into problems, and people should be aware of this history because it's important for avoiding future misunderstanding like this. This was an African-only conference. When I was in Durban, we helped the Siddi community, the so-called untouchable in India, to organize their own conference. None of us would go because it was their conference for them to decide how they will move forward. And so our conference was for Africans to get together to see how we will move forward with these gains in Durban. And yet, many European, especially those on the island of Barbados, stand up and said, we want to be in it. We want to be part of it. And we say, well, we can have some side issues. You can have some side meetings and you can decide how you will help us. But this main issue is in years in waiting, not since Marcus Garvey organized African people. We now want this forum to be for Africans and Africans only. Because the media took a different position, even the media in Barbados, which one would have thought would have been more about equality and those sort of progress, took a different view and made a right song and dance about it. In fact, I have to say 2 days out of the days we were there was spent trying to unravel this. Many of us were clearly committed that we will go on regardless. Some left. And if that is their view, then very, very much that's what they want to do. But we continue with that process.
What was the outcome of that meeting? What formed from that meeting?
The outcome was that we produced a document called the Bridgetown Protocol. We created the organization Global African Congress, and we decided from there on to make sure that we organize right across the globe to create chapters locally, to create regional structures, to ensure that our people have a voice in the demand for reparation, not only for enslavement, for colonialism and neo-colonialism, if you like. It wasn't necessarily said on the platform, but that's the times that we're living in, and we need to recognize that. So the commitment was made to set up a global organization in order to motivate, mobilize, and move forward with our struggle that had been stalled, as I said earlier on, because the Rastafarian, and we pay particular homage to the Rastafarian, had ensured that we continue, and we kept that fire alive. So we were...
I may, Glenroy. I notice in the name of the Global African Congress, particularly UK, that the African is spelled with a K and not a C. Why is that? It's a regular retort I receive from members of our community and others, of course. But why with a K and not a C?
The first thing to say is that, we are responsible for changing the narrative in so many issues.
Absolutely.
We talked earlier on about the English vernacular for calling us slave. We must resist that. The K in Africa, and another argument I think you will hear is, well, why is it called Africa? It was named after some Roman Empire, and I'm not going to challenge that, because I really honestly don't know, as when we talk about Kemet and so on. But the K represent Ka. It represents the energy within us, represent African energy. And that was the reason in Barbados, and within the Bridgetown Protocol, there is a section that explained that, why we write that with a K. And I believe that the philosophy is a sound one, and encourage people to investigate it if they need to know more. But it is to add to our spiritual understanding of who we are. It's a Ka.
Thank you. And can I ask you just to give us a quick summary of the aims and objective of the GAC, the Global African Congress? Just a quick summary so that the audience can appreciate its aims and objectives, its purpose, of course.
Its main objective is to bring organizations together in regions who are contributing to the fight for our people. In other words, if we have a situation, for example, and this is in our literature, a domino group that seeks to bring people together, and sometimes there's discussion in those domino group. Why not have discussion around the state of African people in the UK, in wherever you are? So we ask that organizations who are doing anything to challenge the state that we find ourselves in should be part of the Global African Congress. In other words, it's an organization of organization. Yes. But it's not just to get organizations together. It must be about campaigning locally, challenging governments locally to ensure that the issue of reparation is on the agenda every day that we can. And there's another issue that needs to be put on the table.
Okay.
We need to ensure that the usurping of our agenda does not happen.
Indeed.
Africans need to be at the table to say the resolution of these issues. Because, for example, the whole idea of a crime against humanity is so that the very people who have been armed will decide if justice has been done.
Indeed.
And why we're having these arguments with some of these organizations who said, oh yeah, we did wrong, here's a couple of pounds, go and fix it, such as the Church of England. It doesn't work like that.
No.
You must engage with the community, you must engage with organization on the ground, and make decision around their input into that process.
Thank you.
But the danger is that if we don't mobilize, just as I was saying about the trade union, we don't get involved, Marcus Garvey said the other man will run away with your clothes.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And if I may, there are, of course, some interesting personalities who some people will be aware. I think we should give applaud to the likes of Esther Stanford. I think you would agree, has made an
Yes,
impression.
and also acknowledge that she was she mobilized UK attendance to Barbados, to a
Yes,
Bridgetown conference,
yes,
along with Sister Gail. You know, so there are many people, Elder Buddy, people like that were part of that
yes.
initiative to build on what happened in South Africa to make sure we didn't lose that. And if you think about that, we're saying to people, look, we got to do something in a year.
Can I just add to that? Of course, and the founders and management of Galaxy Radio
Yeah, yeah.
most certainly
Who are also in Barbados.
absolutely in enormous amount. And another reasons why I like Galaxy Radio, I must say, the commitment to the cause is without reserve. It is absolutely total commitment. I do want to give acknowledgement to the management of Galaxy Efui.net. I just take us now to the present day. But of course, the reparations movement in the UK has morphed into different forms. Okay, where do you see the movement going at the moment? And what would be your wise words? A man, a comrade who has committed his life to equality for all, but most certainly for African peoples.
A wise word, I would certainly say I would describe it as fire, because we need some fire.
Indeed.
People should not allow the heat to go out of the argument, because there is a phrase, there's an African phrase that says, if one of our people are on their way, and forgive me any church people who are listening, no offend intended, but they say that if the person on his way to church meets a European on its way, they usually turn back and go home because they've seen God. Now, there is the danger. There is the danger here of our people allowing Europeans to set the agenda.
Yeah.
And I speak specifically about people like King Charles, people like the Church of England, people like the heirs of enslavement. And I know that's not their name, but that should be their name. And when we meet with them, we should remind them that, don't call yourself heirs of slavery. You're heirs of enslavement. And we need to get that narrative. What I would say to younger people and people who will be joining and being part of the struggle, it really is in your hand.
Yes.
Do not allow any discussion about you without you.
Absolutely.
Anywhere you can, be part of that. Because it will happen. It will keep happening. When Richie Sunak says, we don't want to talk about that anymore, it means that he's going somewhere else to talk about it, but without us.
That's right.
How to stop it.
Yes.
People must interpret that correctly.
Yes.
Because you cannot ignore the fact that reparation is on the agenda. His sleight of hand of trying to wave it away is not going to be the case. And anyone who falls for that miss the fact that he or she should be in the room to make those demands. So my advice will be seek out wherever you become aware that discussions are going on about you.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't just include the things that we would normally see as reparation, because reparation is wide. Somebody once reminded me about the debt in custody.
Yes.
That the demand for life.
Yes.
Is a reparation demand. People will not see it in that way.
Absolutely.
The education or the miseducation of our children. You mentioned today about supplementary school.
Yes.
We need to support these activities.
Absolutely. Yes.
We need to de-brainwash.
Yes.
Which is, I think, is a terminology that Galaxy use. It's a real necessity and fact.
Absolutely.
Talk to your children when they come home.
Yes.
What did you do at school today?
Yeah.
What lessons did you learn?
Hold there.
Sometimes it will be dismissed flippantly.
Hold this for a moment. And what I'm going to do, just adjust my screen, so we're alongside each other. I'm going to give out the telephone number, but I realise that we're only only a few minutes, but I might take a call or two. And if you want to engage with the great comrade Glenroy Watson, you've heard his words. Yeah, it resonated, hasn't it? It has resonated. Yeah, I know it's resonated with you all. I can hear the tension. Okay. Now it's time for us to take responsibility. We can make the difference, as Ndidi said. Call the studio. It's 0203 289 6504. You can engage the great Glenroy Watson. Comrade Watson. 0203 289 6504. We have the first caller come through right now. Comrade, there we go. Good morning, caller. Can I have your name, please?
Yes, good morning, Councillor Martin Seaton. My name is Sister Aisha Chowdhury, and also Brother Glenroy, the legend, will know me as one of his mascot, along with Sister Halima and Brother Akish. How is our brother Glenroy, the legend, doing?
I'm doing all right, my sister. Thank you for calling. I think when I mentioned the need for people within organization to mobilize, you are one of those people that I'm reminded of. You know, we don't always agree on the way and how the mobilization should take, but it needs to be mobilized. We learn, we adjust, and we continue.
My sister, can I ask you, what's your contribution? What do you do in this reparations space? What have you done?
I'm just going to be honest. I don't do much other than, so I'm of Asian, I'm Bangladeshi origin. So what happened is I mainly got concerned because of the awful trade union racism I got. And I've been ever since trying to seek kind of justice for it. And in that process, I ended up, through Sister Mel, ended up in Brother Glenroy's space in the Global African Congress, where I can see on YouTube Sister Teresa is from. An amazing array of personalities like yourself, Sister Teresa being a fantastic coach, coaches, these amazing wealth of Black talent and African ascendant talent. And so through that, because Brother Glenroy helps, once I sent off a reparations, I think, email to an MP. And then because of Sister Halima, my Muslim sister, big shout out to her, I went to Parliament, and the weirdest thing would be, I thanked Brother Glenroy. I said, Brother Glenroy, thank you, because I ended up sightseeing. I've never been inside the British Parliament, so this got to be the weirdest thing he's linked to. That was so kind of Brother Glenroy to say mobilize. I think there's two great things about Brother Glenroy, and one of them is, and all of the sisters and brothers there, is that when you go to these spaces, him and Sister Judy being the key people there, is nobody is there's no animosity there. For example, I go there, I get all the numbers, I go, right, I know Brother Glenroy, the legend, and instantly I get the contacts. And then that's the important thing. We have to be connected up. For example, one of the socialist arena people are here, and Brother Glenroy cuts across, beyond the African ascendant spaces to the white socialist spaces because of his trade union work. He's so well known and so well respected. And so that's what I learned, the generosity, not to be, no one is ever vicious to me, whereas in other spaces, people feel like I've come to get things, and that's not what I just do. I love connecting up people. I love celebrating people. And I don't want to take up too much time, but one of the things me and Sister Halima and, we were able to do at TUC Black Workers Conference, the last one, as Brother Glenroy being a RMT Black Members Chair, was we were able to get him an applause, which was quite hard work. And that goes to show the amount of uphill battle everyone faces. And Brother Glenroy, of course, the RMT, they were strong, lot of numbers, and Sister Mel, of course, made it to the TUC Race Relations Committee. Brother Glenhart, another Brother Glenn, is, of course, these are tributes to Brother Glenroy. They wrote amazing things on the card, that him being their mentor and how much difference he's made. He lives behind an immense legacy. And the last thing I wanted to say was I absolutely admire and love observing Brother Glenroy as a leader, because that's what I'm obsessed with, leadership. And he dresses really cool. He rocks the African, looks like Islamic dress, those clothes really well. He looks really good in hoodies as well.
Yes.
He's just fantastic the way he speaks.
He's blushing now. He's blushing now.
And as a Muslim, I loved, he doesn't say sister, he says my sister, my brother.
That's right.
So now I go around my high street saying, Assalamu alaikum, my sister. Is Sister Abina here?
There you go. Yes. Uh-huh.
Is Sister Abina, the Empress, here?
Yes. Is she here, sorry?
Is Sister Abina, the Empress, as you said?
Oh,
here?
no, she's not on at the moment. No, she's got her son. I believe they're now in southwest England somewhere, I believe.
I see. This is what I mean. I love looking into these spaces and seeing all the wonderful talents.
Yeah.
And above all, I want to say, Brother Glenroy really lives up to the word, my sister and my brother. When you need help, he helps. And I think I was thinking about your show and what to say. Lastly, reflecting on the much needed contribution, pretty much like the contribution he would have made, because if you think about it, there wouldn't be a Muslim version of Brother Glenroy.
Yeah.
So he would have helped all the Beardy brothers that were up and coming as reps, for my generation, if you think about it. And I think that's such a immense the contribution and the debt we owe to
Thank you so much for the call.
Ascendant.
Okay, thank you so much for the call. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome.
There you are. Pleasure. Wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. Oh, Comrade Glenroy, huh? Oh, you have a fan. Huh?
Well, we need young people like these to keep the fire going and work across community, because the resolution to global inequality is not dependent on any one group of people.
No.
We all must rise up to the challenge, and comrades from other community are part of that. So well done, Aisha. I hope you haven't got up too early like me. Mr. Motivator got me up so early. I'm normally a late turn person.
Oh, yes, you are.
Also,
you are. Give out the number again. So it's 0203 289 6504. I see the chat is quite busy. I see Sister Teresa's asked a question. The question for your guest. How can we build collaboration with all Africans doing works and bring awareness to them of the GAC UK and their long-term generational goals? Okay, maybe Sister Teresa should call in and actually pose that question in her own way, maybe. But in fact, what I'm going to ask you, Sister Teresa, to call in on 0203 289 6504. You call in. You pose that question yourself. I want to pose another question to Comrade Glenroy. I understand, Glenroy, from a little bird who's told me that you intend. You're born in Jamaica. You come to Britain. You've been in Britain for a good part of your life, but you want to leave Britain to reside in Tanzania. Why would you leave Britain with all its many amenities and live in Tanzania?
I don't ignore the fact that the amenities have been built by us, created and delivered by us.
Yes.
And in so many cases, for example, the NHS is being denied to us.
Yes.
When our people can't get treatment or being stopped at the door because of the color of their skin. So I believe we must fight in order to make sure the amenities does belong to us. But I don't see myself as actually leaving Britain. I see myself as a journey. You know, the aircraft, if you want to go to Africa from Jamaica, hopefully that will change. If you got on British Airway or somewhere, you have to come to England.
Yes.
Before you can get another plane to go to Tanzania. So as far as I'm concerned, this was just a pause in the journey on my way back to my ancestral home.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the fact that we are struggling and what is the demand of reparation, because the amenities that should exist for everybody the world over doesn't exist everywhere.
Okay.
But that should not be a challenge or should be a resistance to doing something about it. So I'm going to Tanzania because I feel a spiritual calling. In my younger days, I wanted to live in Arusha, which is at the foothills of Kilimanjaro. I've decided now I want to be nearer the beach rather than up in the mountains, but I will be in the region to be able to go and spend time in Kilimanjaro. Wow. That in itself should be enough, regardless of whether, you know, they have the same amenity. Wow. But the amenities here, people should also make sure they defend it. So I'm going there to continue my journey. Mm-hmm. It's been an intention. I don't know when I've not thought that that's where I will end up. I'm an internationalist, so whilst I'm still able, I will still be traveling to as many places as I've been doing, and I will continue to do so. So it's not a settling down in one place. There will be a time of reflection and pause. I hope I can still remember how to do that. You know, stop for a moment and smell the roses, as they say. But in general, I'm not going to hibernate. I'm going to continue. With the modern technology and the means of communication, I'll certainly not be outside of activities where I can. But, you know, there comes a time that I would like to be someplace that the resonate of where we are provide some solace. And that's what I'm looking for. I think I get that here with my family and friends and so on. But I think that you can also enhance that with the environment that you're in. And that's the intention. But by no means am I going away. In case Sister Teresa doesn't call, I think, you know, we are seeing some things happening regarding mobilization of groups and organizations that are here. I don't know, Mr. Motivator, if you're aware that, for instance, Clive Lewis, the MP, now has resource to pay somebody to coordinate who the groups are in the UK. My only response to that so far, I hope that their qualification is not just simply that they know how to do a spreadsheet, that they're actually people with history within the community. Yeah. And it's until the 11th of August, the application. So if there are people out there who feel they have what's required, the experience within the African community, within the reparation struggle, because what he said he'll be doing with that worker is gathering data around activity. Now we know that many organizations are not necessarily at that level, so it will require reaching out. And if we don't have the right people with the right ability to reach out, it will be a failed attempt. So we need to be part of mobilizing and bringing together people nationally. Yes. And we used to use our international connection to make sure we are all working together. The work that CARICOM and the AU are doing is also part of that, but at another level. We need to also make sure ordinary people are not left behind. Thank us being part of that mobilization.
Can I just ask?
There was a third part, but
Let me just take this caller. If we've got time, we will return to that. Caller, can I just take your name, please?
Yeah, it's Teresa.
Oh, Sister Teresa, good morning to you. Good morning. Thanks for calling in. I was going to read out your long question. I said, well, you should call in or put your question to Comrade Glenroy. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Hi, Cuz. Okay.
Oh,
a question
all right.
for
That's give the games away, doesn't it?
How could we build collaboration with all Africans doing good work and bring awareness of them, of who GAC is, and our long-term generational goal? Yeah, it's a bit
big
long.
Question. It's a big question.
Our long-term generation goal must be to educate our youth to make sure they understand the history of the struggle, but how they have a role to play. And that, as I earlier on, the motivator was talking about Saturday school, we need an expansion of them. We need schools that will be for the purpose of educating our own people. Where you have, and we mustn't pretend that somehow it's all over and everything's okay. There is still a struggle taking place. Sometimes we're embarrassed about it. Why do I want to be going through that again? My father did, my uncle, auntie, and so on. But the struggle continues. It's not a throwaway phrase. It continues. So it's about making sure educational facility, not school, not training, education facilities are there for the young and for young, mature adults. The issue of building alliance, for me, is a very important a criteria, but it won't happen. I mentioned Clive Lewis's initiative. Let's not depend on that. Let's use it, be part of it, but be building our own effort around knowing who we are. We've got a situation, for example, I know at least 3 attempts to build a database of Black organization in the UK. And many people, if you ask them, they won't know about it. There's been some about Black businesses, which I think is still around, but not necessarily been updated for some time. We also need one about groups and activity and organization, which is the mantra of the Global African Congress, to bring all of these organizations into an alliance. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that we've been successful at it and we've run into a number of obstacles and a number of difficulty, but the struggle continues.
Yes.
So I don't know if that helps, Sister Teresa.
Yeah, that's a good start. I'm obviously very interested in getting, past the symbolism and getting down to the structures. And I think the database is a really good start. But I would shout out that even though you're away and you're not far away because we have virtual, that everybody who is interested, put their hand up and start to come forward to say, how can we do our part? Because my challenge, and I've seen it many times, is that people get burnt out, they get tired, they get demotivated because they can't see the bigger picture. So the strategy, I think, is good, but how the implementation of the strategy works in the practical sense, I think we need a lot more to be done. And the Motivator Show is one of the great voices out there consistently, and I think it sets an example of consistency. Your work in your your RMT work and in the GAC also sets consistency, but there's a big gap on that scale of work. So I would love to know how we can look at the best of the best and bring the best in.
My sister, thank you. Thank you for your call. We're nearly out of time now. I'm going to say thank you for your call. And I look forward to speaking to you in the not too distant future.
Okay. Take care. Thank you for answering. All right.
Comrade Glenroy, there you are. I know you've got a fan club out there. So that's a sign of the impression you've made on us all. Okay. What's your closing word to the audience here? And remember, this is a recording. It's being recorded. It will be available on YouTube and Facebook. What would be the wise words? Your word might become an African proverb. You never know. Tell me, what's your last and closing words?
My last and closing word, I hope not last and closing, but my closing word would be to say that, we are building institutions. Sometimes we don't realize that. This radio show is an institution. This radio show should be protected because there have been a number of attempts over the years to silence Galaxy Radio.
Yes.
People will remember that there were an attempt to take them to court.
Yes.
There was a time that strange people used to turn up at the address to break up the transmitter and to steal equipment.
Yep.
And you have to praise the Galaxy management that they continue in the face of those kind of things. So I'm saying institutions like this, shows like yours are part of that institution. I am, as you say, a trade unionist, and I believe that we can make the trade union do what they're supposed to do. Those are institutions that we should preserve. If you're in a job, join a union in that job.
Yes.
If you're active in an organization, don't be some sort of passive participant in that organization. Make that organization do what is needed. There is no organization, I believe, that exists that couldn't make a contribution to improving the lives of all people.
Yes.
And finally, while people don't like to hear this, politicians go around and make decisions on our behalf. Make sure you can hold their foot to the fire. Make sure you can make the demands of them. So people say, oh, let's not worry about them. They're over there. They are over here. And we must make sure that they are answerable to the people who elect them. I don't know, is it 4 years or 5 years, whatever the period in the UK, not just those times, all times. They are being paid all the time, and they're our employee, and we must remind them
absolutely
why we voted for them. And it's not even because you voted for them, because they won. You are demanding that they deliver. And I don't like to say this because obviously it's contradictory what I'm saying. Even if you didn't get a chance to vote, but they represent you, you must still be able to go to them and say, deliver. So those 3 areas, I'm sure there are many, many others that others will come up with, that you must make sure that you take action around them. Support our institutions such as Galaxy Radio and the Motivator Show. Support the trade union movement, not because they're doing what they're supposed to do, but because you can go in and make a difference to what they're supposed to do, and make sure political decisions are not made without your consent. I can say a lot more about other bits of society, but I'd like to leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The great comrade, Glenroy Watson. We wish you well. And thank you for all your works. And I know you will continue in Tanzania. I look forward to seeing your works in Tanzania. I really look forward to it. But I know you will not be a stranger, because you'll be here online, interacting with us all, and you'll ensure the reparations work in the UK and union representation continue to go forward, never backwards. Thank you, Comrade Glenroy Watson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Motivator.
Blessed.
Thanks very much.
Blessed to you.
One love.
Bye-bye. One love. Wow. Wasn't that something? I think I'm now almost out of time. I'm now going to hand over on the Galaxy Afiwe network for the next pilot. So I'll just do the usual disconnect there, and then we'll just do some closing statements from me. There we go. And to the Galaxy Afiwe people, blessed to you all. Blessed to you all. And for us here on Facebook, Mixcloud, and YouTube, let me just do this closing statement. And I think clearly today's show has exemplified why these podcasts, these shows are so important. Okay. For us to motivate us together okay, and create an environment in which we empower each other. Okay, let's take down that graphic for the moment. So, Ndidi's statements, Ndidi's article on the importance of citizens participating in fixing Nigeria, fixing Africa, fixing our situation here in Britain, the Caribbean, and the Americas, the United States of America, Canada, and so on. Okay, it is the citizens that must participate. It's not an individual, people like myself or Glenroy. It's you coming together, giving us the support that we need in order to deliver the agenda that we've agreed. You know? In my own borough of Southwark, okay, following the George Floyd assassination by those police officers, okay, we created a new policy, a fundamental policy called Southwark Stands Together, okay? And that's a root and branch equalities strategy, okay? Which addresses directly issue of racist behavior by the institution, Southwark Council, and the institutions that interact with us, okay? Being the strategic body in this borough of Southwark, okay? And it's creating real, genuine change, okay? But for that change to be meaningful and sustained, it requires the community to advocate, okay, for those changes. You can't just leave it for others and you just sit and walk on by. You have to participate. And that's the essence of Ndidi's article, okay? The importance of citizens' participation in fixing Nigeria, but this applies to Africa, to Europe, to the Caribbean, to the Americas, to the United States, and so on. Read that article, okay? And if you're not a member of my WhatsApp group, okay, then I will create a methodology by which you can become a member of the WhatsApp group so you can receive these really important articles that are thought-provoking, but are designed to stimulate action. And of course, the purpose of these shows, because this is the Motivator Show, and this is where we translate our words into action, and where success is ours for the taking, okay? And you have to believe that statement, okay? You have to believe that statement. Internalize it, repeat it in your head, repeat it, keep repeating it. Every other moment, just repeat it, okay? So it becomes a part of your consciousness, okay? Once it's a part of your consciousness, your entire demeanor will change, okay? Your entire demeanor will change. Remember, change is what we make of it, not others make of it, okay? Others try to disempower you. Here, we want to empower you, okay? So, if you're not a subscriber to the show, okay, let me put it on the screen. If you're not a subscriber, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, please, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe. Or give us a like, the thumbs up. There you are, you can see it on the screen. Give us the thumbs up, just so it's an affirmation that you appreciate the content. If you're on YouTube, of course, follow the Motivator Show on YouTube, so you'll see the notifications of shows as they come along, okay? And you also see some interesting articles that I refer to in the show. Okay, all right, let me take that off the screen. And lastly, I want to give a big shout out again for all of you who are committed, okay? Who understand that we're only here for a short period of time, okay? And we're about custodians of the earth, okay? It is our legacy that we are building so that our children may benefit. I said it again, it's our legacy that we're building so our children may benefit, okay? You heard the works of the great comrade Glenroy Watson. You heard his works, okay? He's impacted tens of thousands of people. Tens of thousands of people. And I'm amongst them. Because what he doesn't know is that that's how I first met him. He had a bucket collecting donations to support the efforts to overturn the fascist regime in South Africa. And he was talking to someone else, but he spoke with such eloquence, such power, such passion, such certainty. Oh my gosh. I was at a distance and I got closer and closer and closer and listened. I stayed there for a good hour just listening. That was truly a powerful and moving experience. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's long before I met him formally and we started working together. Okay. But truly impressive, and truly impressive African. Truly impressive. Now, I want to give a last call out to the people of Nigeria, you know, the many trials and tribulations in Nigeria. Okay. Look, I know I focus a lot on Nigeria. I focus for very, very specific reasons. It is the largest democracy in Africa. It has amongst the greatest potential for economic growth of the African countries south of the Sahara. Okay. It has the highest population density, amongst the youngest population in the world. Investing in the young, investing in Nigeria will benefit the whole of West Africa. In fact, it will benefit the whole of Africa. I'd love to persuade the various parties, political parties, to find an ability to find national unity, come together and form a government of national unity. For the next 20 years, a government of national unity, and focus on economic growth. Yeah, that's what I'd like to see. All the parties come together and form a government of national unity. And let there be a tripartite presidency. One from the north, one from the southwest. Yeah. In other words, I'm actually saying, let there be a Hausa Fulani president. Let there be an Igbo president. Let there be a Yoruba president. Yeah. Being the big communities there. Let those presidents be in power simultaneously, and they only make decisions once they've been able to arrive at a consensus. Mm-hmm. But let the parliament in Nigeria rule, therefore. Mm-hmm. Complex, yes. Create some instability, possibly. But a government of national unity for 20 years. I'm not an expert, but I can easily predict that if Nigeria was to find a government of national unity for 20 years, Nigeria will be transformed into a superpower. Nigeria will be transformed into a superpower because the people, the government, will be working as one, working to achieve economic growth, to eradicate poverty, improve healthcare, improve the education system, justice for all. Am I being overly ambitious? No. No. I'm being perfectly reasonable. So I say to the people of West Africa, rally around Nigeria, give them the support they need so we can create that economic superpower in Africa. I pause because I want you to digest that ambition. And if I could share that ambition, and if you'd act upon the ambition, a government of national unity for 20 years, given a 20-year remit, with a focus on economic growth. Oh yeah, Ndidi would no longer complain. Okay. Yes, Ndidi, I agree with you. We need a new constitution for Nigeria. Absolutely. But through a government of national unity. All right, I'm going to pause there. I hope you're all listening to that. I hope you don't feel it's too much. I hope that I've energized you sufficiently that the ambition is realized in our lifetimes. But I can assure you that there are many who would not wish that to happen. Let me assure you, they do not want that to happen. Yeah, they benefit from the internal strife and tribulation. Yeah, they enjoy and profit from the disunity. Yeah, the self-dedication that's going on in Nigeria. So I say to you all, that's the future. Governments of national unity, working as one with an economic focus. There you are. That's the ambition for The Motivator, where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. Until the next strong, I remain loyal to you all. Take care. To the next strong. And we'll be an exciting speaker next week. Or speakers. You never know, all right? And if you're on YouTube or Facebook, please give us a like or follow us on Facebook. Give us a like. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you're on Mixcloud, of course, subscribe. It costs you not a penny, but affirm that the content meet with your satisfaction. Until the next strong, be good to each other. Love each other, and peace, and let peace reign. Praise be. Wow, there we go. Let's get the music going, shall I? Let's get this going again. It's The Motivator. Think you are too small. You haven't. What's